depiction of a natural phenomenon through some fictitious external source. It doesn't convince us, primarily because the meaning or the answer to such a question is not sought from within its own existence. The tide is something that happens on the earth. So the question that one should be asking is, tide where? Tide in water. In water where? In the sea and in the river. What is special? Where is the river and the sea? On the surface of the earth. What is it about the earth itself that creates these tides? And then we basically try to look at it in terms of some natural law that occurs universally in terms of gravity. The moon pulls the earth gets flattened at the pole, stretched out towards the equator, the water flows out in one direction, then it moves in a different direction, and there's a contraction and the water flows back. And then this explains the rough periodicity of the tides, and it explains the phenomenon from within its own paradigms. Not in terms of some external thing which is merely a hypothesis. The same here. When you try to understand these questions, these fundamental questions, what comprises freedom? Impelled by what does the mind, do the senses act? How to know the knower? Yeah? And from what does this world come about? In what does it subsist? In what does it merge? Fundamental questions like this, the answers need to be sought in the question itself. Not, by that I don't mean you put the question down on a piece of paper and stare at it, but rather ask yourself, what is it in me subjectively that has led me to ask this question? What is the kind of answer that I am seeking? What will satisfy me? Any number of answers given by others in terms of narratives with great seriousness. Oh, if you don't believe in this, you will go to such and such hell, etc., etc. Or something like, oh, if you do such and so will come and save you. It's not going to satisfy the thinking person. What satisfies is the truth, the impersonal, universal truth. That alone will satisfy the mind that is oriented towards enquiry. This is the scientific method. This scientific method, directed inwards, is what the Vedantic literature or the Madhyamika Buddhism literature is about. This process of this faculty of enquiry, tad vijignasa sva, try to know that through the process of enquiry. This is the sole instruction. This is the sole instruction. It's a simple instruction, very difficult to follow. And then there are training. There's a training of the mind which adapts the mind, which trains the mind to be capable of really understanding the deeper significance of these questions in one's subjective consciousness itself, not outside. In terms of the rest of one's subjective experience. That is what defines our empirical eye. And that it is there that these questions arise. So the answer needs to be sought by probing that particular existence of an empirical eye. Is this empirical eye real? Or is it just a figment of our imagination? Kalpana. Yeah? Is it a figment of imagination that is just something that we use to get by in day-to-day life? This question needs to be addressed. It does not need to be addressed outside, but it needs to be addressed to ourselves in our own consciousness. So, this particular discussion, today's discussion, I think the aim was not so much to discuss specific aspects of this particular lecture, Maya and Freedom, but to give you a kind of framework, provide a kind of framework that is necessary in order to make a meaningful study of this kind of literature. Here the question is of freedom, and so if we are to derive personal benefit from it, it is only with this when we have a clear answer in our own minds, why am I studying this? What do I hope to gain subjectively from this? And if the answer is freedom, then the next question that arises is, what do I understand by this word freedom? Is it something that many people have said before me and I'm just parroting it, mouthing it, without really understanding for myself what it means in my day-to-day existence? If so, then reading this is just going to be another exercise of memory, but it will not yield anything permanently satisfying. If, on the other hand, at least we have something concrete for myself or for oneself to gain out of this. This Anubandha Chatushtaya, in every Vedantic book, there's what is called an Anubandha Chatushtaya. So one of them is Prayojan. Prayojan is one of them. So what is the Prayojana? What is the need? This thing must be very clear before we get into the body of the literature. Why am I studying this? What is the Prayojana? What is the need? Why am I particularly interested? And the clearer the answer to this question, subjectively, the more will be the personal benefit from that study. And then the literature provides you a certain framework, a way of grasping that, grasping the central truth in a piece of work. And one particular point, which if you grasp, it grasps the whole thing, is what is the central question that this particular Upanishad is trying to address. It's not always stated at the beginning. Typically, it is not. It's stated somewhere there in the middle. It might be possible that different people interpret the central question of an Upanishad differently. But that's not important. What is important is, what do you regard as the central question that a particular Upanishad is trying to answer? Once you've grasped that, really, this is the question that I need to understand. It's stated here, and the rest of it I should interpret as an answer to this central question. Half the battle is won. The rest of the Upanishad will sort of flow steadily into your level of awareness, into your thinking. And therefore, while studying any of this seriously, the first step would be to identify, at least for oneself, what the central question is. Here, in this particular, so this is not necessarily true of only stuff that is written in Sanskrit. Here also, this is written in English. This is a lecture called Maya and Freedom. And the central questions are really, what does Vivekananda here mean by Maya? What is it to me? One. Two, what does he mean by freedom? What is it to me? These two questions are the central points, and they are obverse and reverse of the same question that this particular lecture is trying to answer. Once one grasps that, the rest of the lecture starts developing an organic reality which tries to answer this question itself. We'll come back to this next time. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.